Hello guys, welcome to another video here on Burp Suite, the Intruder, and this is under the Web Fundamentals series or the Web Fundamentals learning part here on Tryhackme. We've treated the how the web works module, introduction to web hacking module, and we're currently on the Burp Suite module. Without further ado, let's jump right into it. Today we're going to learn how to use Intruder to automate requests in Burp Suite. Okay. Task 1, Introduction. So let's quickly start this machine because we know we're definitely going to be starting the machine. Right, so welcome to the Burp Suite Intruder room. In this room, we will explore the Burp Suite Intruder module, which offers automated request manipulations and enables tasks such as forcing and brute forcing. If you're not familiar with Burp Suite proxy and repeater functionality, it is recommended to complete at least the Burp basic room before proceeding. Now, the Burp Suite Intruder module is a powerful tool that allows for automated and customizable attacks. It provides the ability to modify specific parts of a request and perform repetitive tests with variations of input data. Now, Intruder is particularly useful for tasks like forcing and brute forcing, where different values needed to be tested against a target. Okay, now we'll deploy the target VM machine or the virtual machine attached to these tasks by pressing the green start button. We've already done that. Also start the attack box by pressing the blue start attack box. I won't be using the attack box in this text. I'll be using my own machine Burp Suite. So let me just put that on the side this way. Okay, so where are we? So if you're not using your own machine, so you can just start the attack box here. Just click on attack box here and you can start that, and then I'm using my machine, then start Burp and follow along with the new tags. Okay, answer the questions. Let's get started. Completed task 1. Let's head on to task 2. What is Intruder? Intruder is Burp Suite's built-in forcing tool that allows for automated request modification and repetitive testing with variations in input values. By using a captured request, often from the proxy module, Intruder can send multiple requests with slightly altered values based on user-defined configurations. It serves various purposes, such as brute forcing login forms by substituting username and password fields with values from a word list, or performing forcing attacks using word lists to test subdirectories, endpoints, or virtual hosts. Now, Intruder's functionality is comparable to command line tools like wforce or ffuf. Okay, so however, it's important to note that while Intruder can be used with Burp's Community Edition, it is rate limited, significantly reducing its speed compared to Burp Professional. And this limitation often leads security practitioners to rely on other tools for forcing and brute forcing. Nonetheless, Intruder remains a valuable tool and it's worth learning how to use it effectively. Now let's explore the Intruder's interface. Okay, I'll quickly go back to my proxy here, and I'm going to open a browser. So you can open a browser. So I'm going to use the browser here. So this is my browser, right? So before that, I can just go over here and pick up our target IP address and come here and paste it. Before I send, I can go back to proxy here and turn on the intercept. Once I've done that, I go back to the browser, the Chromium browser, and hit enter. And here we got the request. We captured the request. Now I would like to Control I, or you just send to Intruder, and here we would have it. Okay, so I'll use this. We'll use this to explain like the Intruder interface. Alright, going on. Now the initial view of Intruder presents a simple interface where we can select our target. This field will already be populated if a request has been sent from the proxy using Control I, just like we did, right? Okay, or right clicking and selecting send to Intruder. Now there are 4 sub tabs within the Intruder. We have the positions, we have the payloads, we have the resource pool, and we have settings. Okay, so now let's go back to the first one. Positions. This tab allows us to select an attack type, which we will cover in the future tags, and configure where we want to insert our payloads in the request templates. Hence, we have the attack types. We have sniper, we have battering ram, we have pitchfork, and then we have cluster bomb. We're going to see more of this in the next tags. The next sub-tab is payloads. Here we can select values to insert into the positions defined in the positions tab. Okay, now we have various payload options, such as loading items from a word list. The way these payloads are inserted into the templates depends on the attack type chosen in the positions tab. Now we could if depending on the position we select, for instance, if you select the pitchfork type and then you have like a username and password, you get a payload set for like 1 or 2 sets right here. Okay, depending. Now the payload type could be simple, it could be numbers. A simple list means you can just load a payload set. For instance, if you select numbers, it means you just want to use a payload set of numbers. So from here you can set the number to the, if you want 1 to 100, 1 to 1000, and then the steps at which you want the payload to brute force, basically. Okay, now that's on payloads, right? Okay, so the payloads tab also enables us to modify intruder behavior regarding payloads, such as defining pre-processing rules for each payload. Example, adding a prefix or suffix, performing match and replace, or skipping payload based on defined regex. Okay, basically you can see that here on the payload processing. If you click on add and then you can select the type you want, you can do that on add prefix, add suffix, match, replace, and so on and so forth. Okay, so that's on payloads. Now let's head on to resource pool. Resource pool, let me cancel this. Resource pool, this tab is not particularly useful in the Burp Suite. In the Burp Community Edition, it allows for resource allocations among various automated tasks in the Burp Professional without access to these automated tasks. Now this tab is of limited importance in this particular edition, so we're using the Community Edition. So in Professional this is more useful, right? Lastly is the settings. This tab allows us to configure attack behavior. It primarily deals with how Burp handles results and the attack itself. For instance, we can flag requests containing specific text or define Burp's response to redirect 3xx responses. So basically we can select how we want it to respond here. The error handling, we can change some of the request headers here. Here we set the settings control whether the intruder updates the configured request headers during attacks. So basically this is just the basic settings on how the intruder would function. Okay, now note the term fuzzing refers to the process of testing functionality or existence by applying a set of data to a parameter. For example, fuzzing for endpoints in a web application involves taking each word in a word list and appending it to the request URL. Okay, so for instance, this is the URL and this is what we are fuzzing. So this is word goes here. So to observe the this is basically to observe the server's response as regards to this. We'll see more of this in the example soon. Now in what let's answer the question below. In which intruder tab can we define the attack type for our planned attack? Basically that's in position, so choose attack type. Basically you can do that here, so it's on positions. So let's type position. Is that position or positions? Let's see, identity. Correct. Let's head on to task 3, positions. Now let's dive into positions in depth. So when using Burp Suite Intruder to perform an attack, the first step is to examine the positions within the request where we want to insert our payloads. Now these positions inform Intruder about the location where our payloads will be introduced, okay, as well as as we will explore in the upcoming tasks. Now let's navigate to the positions tab. So we're currently here on the position tab, right? But you know what, I'm just going to go back to my Chromium tab so it will make more sense. On the Chromium tab here, before that, let's just go back to proxy, turn off my intercept, go back to this room here, hit enter. Let's try to log in and capture the login. Yep. Okay. Alright, so I'm just gonna try to append the login URL here. So let's just randomly type in anything here, and then before we go, we just turn on our intercept, then go back here and hit enter. We've got that captured, so let's send that to Intruder. We'll go back to Intruder, and so we can see the username and password here. So let's go on with the example so it will make more sense. Now so we're on the positions tabs right now. Now notice that Burp Suite automatically attempts to identify the most probable positions where payloads can be inserted. So as you can see over here, it doesn't have it. So if I click on auto, you see it automatically just try to position this thing highlighted in green. So it's trying to identify the most probable position where payloads can be inserted. So we're trying to brute force the username and password. So that's basically what it means. Now these positions are highlighted in green, as you can see here, and enclosed by a section mark. I don't know what to call this, but this particular sign. Okay. All right. Now on the right hand side of the interface, we find the following buttons. The add I don't know what to call it. Please, if you know what, you can just leave that on the comment sections. I can search that later, but yeah. Add the sign, clear the sign, auto sign, and then refresh. Now the add the sign button allows us to define new positions manually by highlighting them with the request editor and then clicking on the button. So for instance, if you want to brute force this particular login part, if you just highlight it right here, you just add. Okay, you see, you just added it. So we're going to clear that, and we cleared everything basically. Now the clear button, just like we just did, removes all defined positions, providing a blank canvas where we can define our own positions. So everywhere is blank right now. And then the auto button, that's sign button, automatically attempts to identify the most likely position based on the request. This feature is helpful if we previously cleared the default positions and want them back. So if we just click on auto, as you can see, it does that for us. Now the following GIFs demonstrate the process of adding, clearing, and automatically reselecting positions. Basically we've done that, so skip that. Now take some time to familiarize yourself with adding, clearing, and auto selecting positions using the Burp Suite Intruder interface. You can just practice more. Like I mentioned, you can just force the whole of this support and just add and so on. You can just clear that. Once we clear, we'll click auto and so on and so forth. Now what symbol defines the start and the end of a payload position? So basically it's this symbol. You can just copy that. No, let me just scroll up here. I don't know what to call this sign, so forgive me. So I'll paste this here and then hit submit, and there we go. Correct. Let's head into task 4, payloads. Okay, payloads. Click on here, payloads. Now in the payloads tab of Burp Suite Intruder, we can create, assign, and configure payloads for our attack. The sub tab is divided into 4 positions, or into 4 sections. So we have the first section, which is the payload sets. We have the second section, which is the payload settings, simple payload setting, which basically is for the simple list. If you select a different one, it just says you the payload setting for that particular payload type you selected. Okay, now the payload processing here, and lastly the payload encoding right here. Okay, let's go down to payload sets. So payload sets, the payload sets here, the first is that the sections allows us to choose the position for which we want to configure a payload set and select the type of payload we want to use. So it could be 1 or 2 sets. For instance, if we for instance now we want to brute force with both a username and a password, right? So I'm going to select a, let's say, Pitchfork. So if I select this, for instance, go back to payload, we'll be able to see that we have 2 payload sets right now, where we can use the first payload and add it for username, and select the second payload and add it for our password. Okay, the password list or the password payload. Okay, now when using attack types, When using attack types that allow only a single payload set, just like sniper or battering ram, the payload set drop down will have only one option, just like we experienced previously, regardless of the number of defined positions. So if this is on particularly sniper, and you can see the number of positions that were selected is both for username and password. If you come back to payloads, regardless of what was selected, you're going to still see only one payload set. So you're only going to use one payload set to brute force for both the username and password, which is basically unlikely. So it depends. That's why the attack type is very important. Now, if we use attack types that require multiple payload sets, like the Pitchfork or the cluster bomb, the Pitchfork here and the cluster bomb, these last two can use more than 2 payloads, right? There will be one item in the drop down for each position. So just like we selected Pitchfork right now, payload, we can have basically one payload for each of the selections. So for instance, let's add one more position. Add, so we have 3, right? If we go back to payloads, click here, we see we have payload sets to be 3. Okay, now note, when assigning numbers in the payload set drop down for multiple positions, follow a top to bottom, left to right order. For example, with the positions username, pentester, password, explorer, the first item in the payload set drop would refer to the username field, and the second item would refer to the password field. Now in this time where we have 3, I have this first, this second, and this third. So over here on the payload, the first payload set will be for let's brute force in the login, something that will appear here. This doesn't really make sense, but just for an example. And then if I select the second payload set and go back to position, you should know it's for the username, and so on. So if I clear this and put auto, and if we go back to our payloads, and we have 2 payloads, and the first one would be for username and the second one would be for the password. Let's head into payload settings. Now the setting provides this section provides options specific to the selected payload type for the current payload set. So for instance, if we selected a so for this one, if the first payload we're using for username, I'll come here and I will load that particular payload set right there. And for example, when using simple list payload type, if we use simple list, of course, we can manually add or remove payloads from the set by using the add text box, which we can click on add here. Okay, that's add, you can load and so on. Add text box, paste line, or load payloads from a file. The remove button removes the currently selected line, and the clear button clears the entire list. Be cautious with loading huge lists, as it may cause Burp to crash. Okay, now each payload type will have its own set of options and functionalities. Explore the options available to understand the range of possibilities. Payload processing. Now payload processing, in this section we can define rules to be applied to each payload in the set before it's sent to the target. For example, we can capitalize every word, skip payloads that match a regex pattern, or apply other transformations of filters. So if you come over here, click add, select the type, you can see different: reverse substring, modify case, encode, decode, hash, and so on and so forth. While you may not use this section frequently, it can be highly valuable when specific payload processing is required for your attack. Lastly, here is the payload encoding. This section allows us to customize the encoding options for our payloads. By default, Burp Suite applies URL encoding to ensure the safe transmission of payloads. However, there may be cases where we want to adjust the encoding behavior. You can just by turning it off, or you can just modify that. We can override the default URL encoding option by modifying the list of the characters to be encoded, or unchecking the URL encode these characters checkbox. Okay, right here, click here, encode, and so on. Now, by leveraging these sections, we can create and customize payload sets to suit the specific requirements of our attack. This level of control allows us to finely tune our payloads for effective testing and exploitation. Now, let's answer the question below: which payload processing rule we use to add characters at the end of each payload in the set. So if you're looking at the end, we see prefix. This should be at the beginning, at the end should be for the suffix, so it should be add. Let's cancel this. Add the suffix, hit enter, and that's correct. Let's head on to tax 5. Tax 5 here we do have sniper. Okay, the sniper attack type is the default and most commonly used attack type. So let's head into position, select sniper. So we're right here on sniper. Okay, the sniper attack type is the default and most commonly used attack type in Burp Suite Intruder. It is particularly effective for single position attacks such as password brute force or forcing for API endpoints. Now, in a sniper attack, we provide a set of payloads which can be a word list or a range of numbers, and Intruder inserts each payload into each defined position in the request. Now let's refer to our example template from before. So in this particular login, I think that's what we have right here, where we have username and password right here. In the example, we have two positions defined: the username and password parameter, the username and password body parameter. Now in a sniper attack, Intruder takes each payload from the payload set and substitutes it into each defined position in turn. Now assuming that we have a word list with 3 words: Burp, Suite, and Intruder. Intruder would generate 6 requests. Okay, so this is how it's going to be. The first is going to brute force basically brute force for the username first by interchanging Burp, Suite, and Intruder. At each point in time, it's going to keep the password static basically. So as you can see, password is exploited based on what we see here, the imputed password. In this case, it's going to be this 7 A's or 6 A's, but each time is going to just change Burp and the password that was there before, Suite, and the password that was there before, Intruder, and the password that was there before, and then it will now switch and keep all the username that we had before constant, and then switch between Burp, Suite, and Intruder in terms of password. Okay, so we observe how Intruder starts with the first position username and substitutes each payload into it, then moves into the second position, which is the password, and performs the same substitution with the payloads. Now the total number of requests made by Intruder's sniper can be calculated as request equals to number of words times the number of positions. As simple as that. Now, so if we had number of words, we had 3, the number of positions selected is 2, so the total number of requests we're going to get is 2 times 3, 6. As you can see, 1 2 3 4 5 6. So now the sniper attack type is beneficial when we want to perform text with single position attacks utilizing different payloads for each position. It allows for precise test and analysis of different payload variations. Now if you were using sniper to force 3 parameters in a request with a word list containing 100 words, how many requests would Burp Suite need to send to complete the attack? So we have 3 parameters, and remember our formula is request equals to number of words, in this case 100, times number of positions, in this case 3. So our answer is going to be 300. So we're going to submit that. Correct. Now how many sets of payloads will sniper accept for conducting an attack? We just would need 1 in this case. For sniper, it's 1 payload. Okay, in this case, you see sniper, even though we have 2 positions selected, if you come over to payloads, you're going to see that you can only select 1 payload at a time. Okay, let's head on to the second attack type, which is the Battering Ram. The Battering Ram attack type in Burp Suite Intruder differs from sniper in that it places the same payload in every position simultaneously, rather than substituting each payload into each position in turn. Now let's refer back to our previous example template, just like the one we're using here. Now using the Battering Ram attack type with the same word list from Burp Suite and Intruder would generate 3 requests, just 3 requests. How's it going to do it? It's going to use the first word at the same time for the username and password, the second word for the username and password at the same time, and the third word for the intruder and password, so it doesn't reiterate. So as you can see, at no point in time would the username be Bob and the password be Suite, or the username be Bob and the password be Intruder. So this is the case for Battering Ram. As shown in the table, each payload from the word list is inserted into every position for each request made. In Battering Ram attack, the same payload is thrown at every defined position simultaneously, providing a brute force like approach for testing. Now, the Battering Ram attack type is useful when we want to test the same payload against multiple positions at once without the need of sequential substitution. So that's the usefulness of the Battering Ram. Now, in the upcoming tasks, we will explore further configurations and settings related to Intruder's Battering Ram attack type and examine its application in different scenarios. Now, answer the question below. As a hypothetical question, you need to perform a Battering Ram intruder attack on the example request above. If you have word list with if you have a word list with two words in it, admin and guest, and the position in the request templates look like this: username is this, password is this, what would the body parameter of the first request that the Burp Suite sends be like? So it's going to just go use admin as both the username and password. So in this case, we just say username is equals to admin and password equals to admin. So it uses the same word simultaneously with the two positions. So hit enter, and that was correct. Let's head on to task 7, Pitchfork. Now, the Pitchfork attack type in Burp Suite Intruder is similar to having multiple sniper attacks running simultaneously. Okay, while sniper uses one payload set to test all positions simultaneously, Pitchfork utilizes one payload set per position up to the maximum of 20. Wow. And iterates through them all simultaneously. Now, to better understand Pitchfork, let's revisit our brute force example, but this time with two word lists. Now, the first word list contains a username Joe, Harriet, and Alex. The second word list contains Joel. Let's see, this is basically the passwords. Now, we can use these two lists to perform a Pitchfork attack on the login form. Each request made during the attack would look like this. Now, so request 1 would have the username Joe and password Joel. So it takes the first word on the first word list and append it to the first position, and takes the first word, basically the password list on the password list, and append it to the password. It goes over to the second request and picks the second word on the first word list and picks the second word on the second word list and append it to the password, and so on and so forth. Okay, so as shown in the table, Pitchfork takes the first item from each list and substitute them into the request one per position. Now, if it then repeats this process for the next request by taking the second item from each list and substituting it into the template. Now, Intruder continues this iteration until one or all of the lists runs out of items. Now, it is important to note that Intruder stops testing as soon as one of the lists is complete. Therefore, in Pitchfork attacks, it is ideal for the payload set to have the same length. If the length of the payload set differ, the Intruder will only make requests until the shorter list is exhausted, and the remaining items in the longer list will not be tested. So basically ideal, let's say the word list for the username should be equal to the number of the word list words in the password word list. Okay, now the Pitchfork attack type is especially useful when conducting credential stuffing attacks or when multiple positions require separate payload sets. It allows the simultaneous testing of the multiple positions with different payloads. Now, in the upcoming tasks, we will explore further configurations and settings related to Intruder's Pitchfork attack type and explore its applications in different scenarios, including credential stuffing attacks. Now, let's answer the question below. What is the maximum number of payload sets we can load into the intruder in Pitchfork mode? Basically it's 20. So if you come here and select Pitchfork, even before you select that, it tells you the maximum is 20, and just like we saw also while reading the text. So basically it's 20. Let's head on to task 8. Task 8 is a cluster bomb. Now the cluster bomb attack type in Burp Suite Intruder allows us to choose multiple payload sets, one per position, up to a maximum of 20. Unlike Pitchfork, where all payload sets are tested simultaneously, cluster bomb iterates through each payload set individually, ensuring that every position combination of payload is tested. To illustrate the cluster bomb attack type, let's use the same word list as before. So we have username Joe, Harriet, Alex, and the passwords. In this example, let's assume that we don't know which password belongs to which user. We have 3 users and 3 passwords. Let the mapping but the mappings are unknown. In this case, we can use a cluster bomb attack to try every combination of values. Now this request table for our username and password positions would look like this. So at first we'd have the username pick Joe and password Joe, username Henrietta password Joe, username Alex password Joe. So basically for the 3 usernames that we have here, it has tested the first password for all of them. Then we'll move over to the next set of passwords. So we'll go for Joe with the second password, which is Emma1815, Joe, Harriet, and Alex with testing the password Emma1815, and Joe, Harriet, and Alex testing the password skills. So it's basically reiterating, making sure that the password list goes through the whole of the username list. Okay, as shown in the table, the cluster bomb attack type iterates through every combination of the provided payload list. It tests every possibility by substituting each value from each payload set into the corresponding position in the request. Now, cluster bomb attacks can generate a significant amount of traffic as it tests every combination. Now, the number of requests made by cluster bomb attack can be calculated by multiplying the number of lines in each payload set together. So it's important to be cautious when using the attack type, especially when dealing with large payload sets. Additionally, when using Burp community and the intruder rate and its intruder rate limiting, the execution of cluster bomb attack with a moderately sized payload set can take a significant longer time. Okay. Now the cluster bomb attack type is particularly useful for credential brute forcing scenario where the mapping between usernames and password is unknown. Now in the upcoming tasks, we will explore further configurations and settings related to Intruder's cluster bomb attack type and examine its applications in different scenarios. Let's answer the questions below. We have 3 payload sets, right? 3 payload sets. The first set contains 100 lines, the second contains 2 lines, and the third contains 30 lines. And just like the simple, the request will just be 100 times 2 times 30. That's the number of times. Using this example, we have the number of lines in the first word list is 3, the number of lines in the password list is 3, so 3 times 3 we got 9. 3 times 3 9. So in this case, we're going to have 100 times 2 200 times 30. That should give us about 6,000. Hit enter and that's correct. Here to task 9. Over here in task 9, introduction to attack type. So basically the position tab of Burp Suite Intruder has a drop-down menu for selecting the attack type. Intruder offers 4 attack types, each serving a specific purpose. Let's explore each of them. So we have sniper, basically attack type here. Let's click on that. So we have sniper. The attack type, the sniper attack type is the default and most commonly used option. It cycles through the payload, inserting one payload at a time into each position defined in the request. Sniper attacks iterate through all the payloads in a linear fashion, allowing for precise and focused testing. Battering Ram. The Battering Ram attack type differs from sniper in that it sends all payloads simultaneously, each payload inserted into the respective position. Now, this attack type is useful when testing for risk conditions or when payloads needs to be sent concurrently. 3 is Pitchfork. Now the Pitchfork attack type enables the simultaneous testing of multiple positions with different payloads. It allows the tester to define multiple payload sets, each associated with a specific position in the request. Pitchfork attacks are effective when they are distinct parameters that need separate testing. Okay. Now, lastly, here is the cluster bomb. The cluster bomb attack type combines the sniper and Pitchfork approach. It performs a sniper-like attack on each position, but simultaneously testing all payloads from each set. Now, this attack type is useful when multiple positions have different payloads and we want to test them all together. Now, each attack type has its advantage and it's suitable for different testing scenarios. Understanding their differences helps us select the appropriate attack type based on the testing objective. Now, what type attack type cycles through the payload, inserting one payload at a time into each position defined in the request? That should be sniper. Sniper just does one at a time. That's how life should be. Alright, let's head on to task 10. Practical example. Now, to put our theoretical knowledge into practice, we will attempt to gain access to the support portal located at the HTTP 10.10.10.88, which we have here already intercepted it. Now, this portal follows a typical login structure, and upon inspecting its source code, we find that no protective measures has been implemented. Okay, I can check for that here by just quickly going through that particular link, so you see what we mean over here. If I paste this link, hit enter. Great. Now on this particular page, if I Ctrl U, you would see over here that we do have the password, we do have the username, and it's not protected. Okay, it's not protected, so I can just close this. All right, now given the absence of protective measures, we have multiple options to exploit this form, including a cluster bomb attack for brute forcing the credentials. However, we have an easier approach at our disposal. Attached to this task is a compressed file called bastionhostingcreds.zip, which contains a collection of leaked credentials belonging to Bastion Hosting employees. Approximately 3 months ago, Bastion Hosting fell victim to a cyber attack compromising employees' username, email addresses, and plain text passwords. While the affected employees were instructed to change their password promptly, there is a possibility that some disregarded this advice. As we possess a list of known usernames, each accompanied by a corresponding password, we can leverage a credential stuffing attack instead of straightforward brute force. Okay, now so it's just a credential stuffing attack. So now this method proves advantageous and significantly quicker, especially when utilizing the rate limited version of Intruder. Now, to access the leaked credential, we're going to download the file from the target machine using the following command in attack box. So I can do that on my own machine. I'll go back here. Let's just make directory. I want to call that under the Scali. I'll just call that Intruder. Hit enter, and I'm going to cd into the Intruder. Complete that. Hit enter. So clear. So we're in the Intruder platform now. I'm going to shift complete V. I'm going to just download this here. Now I'm going to list. So we have the Bastion, but it's zipped. So I'm going to quickly unzip it. So unzip that. I think I've done that before. So yeah, hit enter. So we do have that. So ls, I do have the unzipped version of the combined text, email, text, password testing. So if I could just quickly view the usernames, the txt files, you can see all the usernames. Okay, word counts for the username.txt, we have 100. Okay, let's see word count for the password, the tst, basically the same, 100. Okay, all right, let's go on now to, okay, Having done that, now let's continue. So the tutorials. To solve this example, follow these steps to conduct a credential stuffing attack with Burp macros. Okay. All right. Now download and prepare word list. So we've downloaded and extracted that already. Within the extracted folder is the following word list, like we saw. We've done that. Now this contains list of leaked email, username and password respectively. The last list contains the combined email and password list, okay, which is the combined. So we will be using the usernames.txt and password.txt list. Now we're going to navigate. We're done with number one. Number two, we're going to navigate to this particular URL in your browser box. We already did that here, and we tried to log in, and as you can see, it got captured on proxy. That's what we have here on proxy. So I can right click and just send to Intruder, and if we go back to Intruder, we're going to see that right here. So we have that here right now. Okay. So we've captured that. We have attempted to log in and blah 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 blah. Okay, number three, we've captured the read, we'll send it to Intruder. Number four, in the position sub tab, ensure that only the username and password parameters are selected. Clear any additional selections such as section cookies. We didn't have a section cookie here, so I'm going to clear first. Everything is cleared, and I'm going to auto add, and as you can see, we only have the username and the password. We made sure of that, so we can just go ahead now. Continue. Now select the attack type to Pitchfork. So we're using Pitchfork because we're going to use multiple payload. So we have Pitchfork selected, just like we see in the picture there. Now we're going to move to the payload sub tab, move to payloads, and you will find two payload sets available for the username and the password field. So if you click on password set, you see 1 and 2. All right, now in the first payload set for usernames, go to payload options, choose load, and select the username.txt. So we're going to load. We're going to go back here to Kali Intruder, and we have it here. So I'm going to click on username.txt, open it, fill that up, and let's head on to the second thing we're going to do is you're going to repeat the same process for the second payload. So we're going to set the password using the password.txt list. So we'll go here, click on payload set, click on number 2, and we're going to load the password.txt file. We just did for both the first and the second. Okay, the entire process can be seen in the GIF, so you can take a look. 8. Now click the stack attack button to begin the credential stuffing attack. A warning about a rate limiting may appear. Click OK to proceed. Now the attack will take a few minutes to complete in Burp community, so it might take a while. Okay, so I'm going to start the attack, and it did say this is the warning for rate limiting. Click OK, and it's currently brute forcing. So I'm going to wait. Once it's done, I'll be back. Okay, so it's finished. We've finished the attack. Let's see what's the next step here. We have that once the attack starts, a new window will display the results of the request. However, as Bob sent 100 requests, we need to identify which one was successful. As you can see, the status code, even if I click on here, is all 302. So how do we know the right one? So we're going to be using the length. Okay, the length. So since the response status codes are not differentiating successful and unsuccessful attempts, all are 302 redirects, we need to use the response length to distinguish them. So if we click on length, and it's going to sort that for us. So we have the length with this, the smallest time there should be the 1596. Okay, now so we'll click on the header. We just did on the header for the length column to select to sort the result by byte length. Now we'll look for the request with the shorter response length, indicating a successful login. To confirm the successful login attempts, use the credentials from the request with the shorter response length to login. Okay, so over here I think the correct one here is m.rivera, and let me in. I'm going to just type that out here. So I'm going to type that out here. So it's the answer to your questions here. What username and password combination indicates a successful login attempt? The answer is the username and the password separated by colon. So we're going to use m.rivera and column, the password is let me in 1. Okay, so we'll have that. You just confirm if it's correct, you hit submit, and there we go. So we're correct. I can close this now. Basically this guy. Okay, once I do that, I can go back to my proxy, turn off my proxy, and go back to this, and let's see if we can log in with that. Okay, yes, invalid, of course. So we're going to be using m.rivera, and the password is let me in 1, and hit login, and there we go. So we're logged into the support room. As you can see, we can see tickets and so on and so forth. So let's continue. Let's go back to Burp Suite Intruder. Okay, all right. So having done that, let's head on to task 11. This is a practical challenge. Okay, having gained access to the support system, we now have the opportunity to explore its functionalities and see what actions we can perform. Upon accessing the home interface, we are presented with a table displaying various tickets, just like we see here, various tickets. We have a ticket with different number. If you notice, if we click on any ticket, we have a ticket ID showing here 6, and it's affecting here on the URL as well, so it's basically showing. So let's continue. Clicking on any row redirects us to a page where we can view the complete ticket. By examining the URL structure, we observe that these pages are numbered in the following format, which is http 10.10.10.88 support ticket and then the number. As you can see, the numbering system indicates that the tickets are assigned integer identifiers rather than complex and hard to guess IDs. Now, this information is significant because it suggests two possible scenarios. 1. Access control. The endpoint may be probably configured to restrict access only to tickets assigned to our current user. Now, in this case, we can only view tickets associated with our account. Now, number 2, it also shows an idle vulnerability. Alternatively, the endpoint may lack appropriate access controls, leading to a vulnerability known as insecure direct object reference. Now, if this is the case, we could potentially exploit the system and read all existing tickets regardless of the assigned user. Now, to investigate further, we utilize the Intruder tool to force the support ticket number endpoint. Now, this approach will help us to determine whether the endpoint has been correctly configured or if an idle vulnerability is present. Let's proceed with forcing process. Note, you have to capture a request while being logged in. Okay, the question here is which attack type is best suited for this. Since we are forcing for just endpoint with numbers, and basically we're going to be forcing for numbers, maybe between 1 to 100, 1 to 1000. It's going to be sniper. Oh my god, what am I spelling? Sniper. Okay, remember sniper. Sniper is basically this. Let's see, go back to positions. So it's going to be sniper, right? Sniper only allows us to use one payload, and when we're brute forcing for one position. So in this case, we're brute forcing for one position. Now, configure an appropriate position and payload. The tickets are stored at values between 1 to 100, then start the attack. So before we do this, I'll go back to proxy and have my intercept on. If you come back to this web page, I already have my I'm logged in and I can see my tickets, so I can just come here and refresh, and it takes me right to this point. Okay, right to this point. So I have a cookie sessions and all that, so I'm just going to take this to Intruder, send this to Intruder. On the Intruder page, I can see that where's the position that we need right now. It's the number, so we are forcing for the number. So I'm going to copy out this number right here, and I'm going to add that to the position. First, you can clear to make sure it's not selecting anyone, so you can now select that number part, and then we're going to just add that to make it our position, so it's in green, correct? So while we have that, we've also selected our attack type to be sniper. We have selected the position, which is the number, and let's head on to payload. So We're going to be using a simple, the payload is 1, but the payload type is numbers because we don't have a preset. If you have like a word list we just want 200, you can just use the simple list. Otherwise you can just select numbers. In this case we're selecting from 1, they are integers, so we're not including 0. 1 from 1 to 100, and we're doing step of 1, so we don't want to miss anyone. If you use step of 2, it's just going to be, you know, doing it evenly. So we're going to use step of 1, and I think that's it. Do we use URL encoded? I think we're okay to use that. So haven't done that, we're going to start the attack, and there we go. I'm going to minimize. Okay, so I'm just going to minimize that. So while we wait, let's see. I'll be back once it's done. Alright, the attack is complete. Okay, so the attack is complete just like we did before. We've done this completely, and basically if we want to see, we have a status code of 404 and the successful one for 200. So we're going to click on the status code, and as you can see, I think we have 1, 2, basically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 successful payloads that we got. And then let's go ahead and see what we need to do with that. You should find that at least 5 tickets will be returning with a status code of 200, just like we've seen, indicating that they exist. So we complete that. Now entering either using the response tab in the attack results window, or by looking at each successful that is the successful numbers request manually in your browser. Find the ticket that contains the flag. So we do have a flag. I think the easiest way is to use the request here. The other way is by, let's say we go back to Burp Suite here and go back to proxy and turn off our request, and then come back to this part here, and we can brute force it here, right? So over here we have successful is 6. I'm just going to give one example, and then I'm going to do the rest here. So the first one is 6, so we're going to try 6. So we're going to come here and manually put 6 here and hit enter. And once we've done that, we can see the results here. I think it's quite easier to just keep doing it that way. Let's just try 2. Basically we have 47 here. 47, hit enter. And then we have I would like to register. We don't have any flag here. The next is 57. 57, hit enter. We still don't have that, so let's just do the rest here. So we'll click on this request. So we've done 57. So over here you can see the request what we sent, but we're looking at the response here. So if we scroll down a little bit, let me increase this a little bit. How do I do that? Okay, so if you scroll down, you're going to see the response here, right here on this part here. So we're done with 57, doesn't have the flag. 78, what am I doing? 78, scroll down for 78, and we don't have anything. Here I've tried to sign up for the company last 83. So 83, scroll down, voila, we got the flag. So you can just copy the flag here, Ctrl C, and come over here and paste that. Or we can go to that particular URL tab and type in 83, hit enter, and you can still get the flag. So we submit, and yes, we are done with task 11. Let's head on to task 12. Okay, head on to task 12. Close. Now we can close. Where is it? We can close this particular attack. We're done with that. Disregard. Okay, now task 12. This more challenge, a bigger challenge. Okay, so extra mile challenge. In this extra mile exercise, we will tackle a more challenging variant of the credential stuffing attack we previously performed. However, this time additional measures have been implemented to make brute forcing more difficult. If you are comfortable using Burp macros, you can just you can attempt this challenge without the instructions below. Otherwise, let's proceed by with the step-by-step approach. Okay, so now first is catching the request. Begin by capturing the request, which is the admin page. So I'm just going to have my intercept off and come over here, type this entry here. So we'll have this page. So I'm just going to type in a random login request. Then I'll go back to my proxy, turn my proxy on, come back to my Chromium browser, hit send, and we've captured the request. What do we notice? I think we have an additional cookie session here, and we have a login token. So let's continue. Reviewing the response, here is the example of the response. So we've got that. So now in this response, we notice alongside the username and password field, which is username and password, there is now a section cookie set, which you see here. Okay, as well as CSRF cross-site request forgery token in the form as a hidden field. Now refreshing the page reveals that both the session cookies and the login token change with each request. So with each request, this is going to be changing. All right, so if that means that for every login attempt, we need to extract valid values for both the session cookie and the login token. To accomplish this, we will use what we call the Burp macros to define a repeated set of actions, which is macro, to be executed before each request. Now this macro will extract unique values for the section cookie and login token, replacing them in every subsequent request of our attack. Now tutorial. Step 1, we navigate to this. We've done that. Activate intercept in the proxy module and attempt to log in, capture the request and send it to Intruder. So we've accepted this, intercepted this line. Let's send that to Intruder, and here we have that on the Intruder page right now. Configure the position the same way as we did for the brute forcing and support login. At this page, we don't have anything selected, we have everything cleared. So auto, you can see it's selected both the cookie and the token, but we don't need that. So we clear, we just need for the username and the password. Okay, first we're selecting Pitchfork, and then clear all predefined position and select only the username and password from field. Our macro will handle the other two positions. Okay, so for username, select that, add, and for password we select that, and then we add. We've done that. Okay, now switch over to the payload tabs and load the same username and password word list we used for the support login attack. Up until this point, we have configured Intruder in almost the same way as the previous credential stuffing attack. This is where things start to get more complicated. So first, let's head on to payloads. We do have two payload sets. So first one, we load the username, just like we did before, and select the second payload set, and then we're going to load the password. Voila. See, we've done everything just the way we did it previously. Now let's get to the more challenging parts. Now with the username and password parameter and handle, we now need to find a way to grab the ever-changing login token and session cookie. Unfortunately, recursive grep won't work here due to the redirect response, so we can't do this entirely within Intruder. So we will need to build a macro. Now macro allows us to perform the same set of actions repeatedly. In this case, we simply want to send a get request to the admin login page, right? Fortunately, setting this up is a straightforward process. So let's switch over to the main settings page tab at the top right of the Burp. Click on the sessions category, scroll down to the bottom of the category to the macro sessions and click add button. Let's quickly do that. Click on settings, and let me push this to one side. We're on settings, and then we'll click on sessions, and then we'll scroll down to macros and we'll click add. So once we click on add, we have this right here. But before we continue, let's scroll down and see what we need to do next. Now, so the menu that appears will show us our request history. If there isn't a get request to this particular admin login in the list already, navigate to this location in your browser and you should see a suitable request appear on the list. With the request selected, click OK. Finally, get the macros a suitable name, then click OK again to finish the process. So over here, we're going to select, we're looking for a get request to our admin. So we'll keep scrolling down. I can't see it. Okay, I can see it here. Support admin, get admin login. This is it. So click on that, and then I'm going to click OK. Okay, once we come here, I'm going to just call it the macro. All right, so set that as the macro, and I'm going to hit OK. So we're done. We just set our macro, the macro, right? Now this is the process step. You can watch that later. Now that we have a macro defined, we need to set the session handling rules that define how the macro should be used. Now, still in the sections category of the main settings, scroll up to the sections handling rules. If we scroll up here, we can see the sections handling rules here. Okay, section, and then choose to add new rule. So we're going to click on add. So we have a new rule right here. A new window will pop up with the two tabs in it, detail and scope. So we have detail and scope. We are in the detail tab by default. Okay. Now fill in the appropriate description, then switch to the scope tab. So you can just call that rule 1, just head on to scope. Now in the tools scope section, deselect every checkbox other than intruder. We do not need this rule to apply to anywhere. So taking out target, taking out scanner, repeater, sequencer, we just need intruder. Okay, now in the URL scope section, choose the use suite scope. Okay, we did not set the target tab. I didn't set that, so we're going to use the custom scope by just adding that particular basically this will set the macro only to operate on sites that have been added to the global scope, as we discussed in Burp Basic. If you have not set a global scope, keep the use custom scope option as default, and then we're going to add that particular target here. So which is copy that, and we're going to use a custom scope add. I'm going to paste it here, and I'm going to hit OK. So we already have that here. Okay, once we've done that, now we need to switch back over to the detail tab and look at the rule actions. So I'm going to go back to the detail tab and we're going to look at the rule action. Now under this rule action, we're going to click on add button. This will cause a drop down menu to appear with a list of actions we can add. Select run macro. So basically here we'll click on add, we'll click on run macro. So over here on the run macro, let's see what we need to do. Now in the new window that appears, select the macro we created earlier. So we have the one that we created here earlier, which is the macro. And then as it stands, this macro will now override all the parameters in our intruder request before we send them. This is great, as it means that we will get the login tokens and session cookies added straight into our request. That said, we should restrict which parameters and cookies are being updated before we start our attack. In order to do that, we're going to select the update only the following parameter and headers, then click edit button next to the input box below the radio button, and then in the enter new item text field, we're going to type in login token. So over here we have this update all parameter and header, except we're going to put on update only the following parameter and header. So we're going to click on edit, and over here we're going to click, you will see add. We're going to just put in login token. All right, we're going to click add and we're going to click close. So it appears here. We're going to do the same thing here for the cookies. Update only for the cookies. Click on edit, and we're going to add the session. We just call it session, and then we're going to click add, and then we're going to close. Okay, so we have that right there. So having done that, finally press OK to confirm our actions. Click OK, and then the following GIFs will show you how to do this. So we'll basically run our macros, click on OK, and we're done. Okay, click OK and we're done. Yes, now you should now have a macro defined that will substitute in the CSRF token and session cookie. All that's left to do is switch back to intruder and stack the attack. Okay, so I think we're done with the settings. I don't need that here. So basically we're back here on the intruder, and let's hit on the start attack. So it's going to take a while, but I'm going to be back once it's done. Note, you should be getting 302 status codes. That's what we're getting, responses for every request in this attack. If you see 403 errors, then the macros is not working properly. So we're getting 302, so it means you were correct. So let's wait and see once it's done, and then we can continue. Okay, the attack is finished, and basically we've got all our requests here over 100. And basically, like we did before, we all have status codes of 302. and the only way we can do that is to sort it by the byte length. So we'll click on the byte length, and basically we see the one with the shortest byte length here, 659, is O Bennett and Bella 1, and that should be the password and the username for the admin. Let's see if that's correct. So let's push this one side. Basically, I guess that's what it says here on step 8. You should be getting 302 status code. We already did that. Now, as with the support login credential stuffing attack we carried out, the response codes here are all the same, 302 redirect. Now, once again, order your responses by length to find a valid credential. Your results won't be quite as clear-cut as the last one. You will see quite a few different response lengths. However, the response that indicates a successful login should still stand out as being significantly shorter, as you can see, the last one, the first one here after being sorted. Now, use the credential you just found to log in. You may need to refresh the login page before entering the credentials. So let's see if our credentials is correct. So we have the password, the username is O Bennett, BENNETT, and the password is Bella1. Hit enter, and voila, we got that correct. And if that's correct, I can now close this one here, and let's go back to Proxy, turn our intercept off, go back to our Chromium browser, and let's refresh. After refreshing, let's see. Okay, so we now have O Bennett, O.Bennett, and our password is Bella1. Hit login, and let's see. Voila, we are in. So this is the admin page. It shows a profit in millions in euros over quarters, basically. So that's everything here, right? Basically. So yeah, that was a successful one. That was a great one. So let's head on to the last task here, which is conclusion. Congratulations on completing the Burp Suite Intruder room. By now you should have a solid understanding of how to effectively utilize Intruder to automate requests and perform various types of attack. In the next room of the model, we'll be looking at some of Burp Suite's other models, and let's answer the question below. I can use Intruder. Yeah, so we'll complete that, and that's correct. Congratulations. Okay, thank you guys for studying with me. Thank you for learning with me. I'll see you guys in the next video, and ciao.